beautiful brothers and sisters. I'm Giaya Ariati, and I have a first new to this channel on YouTube. It is a conversation where I've decided that it feels aligned to open the space to speak into the journey of the priestess. And I have a beautiful guest here that is a initiate of the purity of Isis. And this is Kat from Sacred Healing Space. Kat, welcome.
Thank you.
Kat has been journeying for 5 or 6 months now in the purity of Isis, and she has a unique story and a lot of insight in relation to some of the things that we don't generally talk about so openly and from a higher lens. So I'm excited to have this conversation in relation to how can we'll call it clearing densities. I liked that. That was Kat's intention, was clearing densities. For me, I'm like, I would give it the word fuckery. Um, um, Kat, you came into my vortex through a time period that you were struggling with quite a bit of this energy and a lot of infiltration and lower vibrational consciousness. And you were just stepping out of a big phase of your initiation, your remembrance journey to come into stepping into the commitment of your path. I'd love for you to share what feels true for you in relation to what led you to me and what was going on for you at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, going back to that time, I was still in the midst of moving through addiction. So, this was my dissension point. This was um, my my stuck point for about 20 odd years. Um, so I'm a single mum of two, and everything I've done for the last 10 years was to try and heal myself. It was to try and stop drinking. So I was studying all the modalities, energy healing, quantum healing, coaching, NLP, hypnosis timeline, all the stuff to try and heal myself. And I came to a point where there was just so much infiltration. There was so much happening, and I just couldn't stop. And I saw you and I resonated so much with you because I saw your hands and your coding, and it was just coming through that I was doing that too. And I was like, wow. Um, it was so beautiful. So when I contacted you, um, we had the most amazing session. And it all just made sense. So I had, and it took me back to when I was two, a memory of being separated from source. And I had a feeding tube. Through a dark agenda in my neck that was siphoning my life force energy. I was feeding that agenda, and it was programmed. So it was subliminal programming in my mind that was keeping me stuck in loops that were making me controlled and programmed, keeping me down. So I couldn't get out. So we had to do a lot of work around cancelling contracts, safely drawing that out. The teeth of it, I felt it like moving out of my system. And I do not consent to this, like declaring it null and void. And the density that was in me was took a while to purify out. And still, when I go back into I know that now drinking is my vulnerable point. It has been my journey, my initiation through the dissension, and even still to this day, there is that point. They're watching. I know this sounds crazy, but they're there waiting for me to slip up, and it's that point of when they can then control and get me again. So again, clearing the subliminal programming. All the energy's out of there now. I'm feeling so much lighter, but it's been crazy, absolutely crazy. So that's when I met you. And then so much has happened since then. Like that was just the beginning of the crazy.
That, right, that was the beginning of the crazy. And it's, well, I mean, it's such a powerful thing for when we meet with someone who understands what we're going through at a
Yes.
level that you're like, oh my God, this makes sense. Oh my God, I can't believe this has been here my entire life. And I know for anyone unaware. The dissension is where basically we're meeting ourselves through the lens, we're learning ourselves through the lens of separation rather than through the lens of connection. And every being is looking for involvement in some form or another. It's just their focus point that they come and return to source. So when we are learning through dissension, we're basically choosing source through the hardest, most painful, most gut-wrenching, most horrible experiences that we can create, so that we get to those desperation moments and we're like, I can't do anymore. I want to die in some form, or I've got nothing left in me. And there's an opening or a please help me to, I'm open, I'm ready, I'll choose something else. And so many of us choose this way of descending. I know it was the path that led me to choosing a different life, and it was a live or die moment. And I've had multiple of those over times, and they're choice points. They're choosing how you're going to continue to see yourself or create your life experience. But with, and I want to speak specifically to the priestess journey. There are so many priestess that through history have meddled with black magic, and they've ended up in satanic rituals and blood rituals and different experiences that are really confronting to the human mind, because we feel like those agendas that we know about as conspiracy theorists are conspiracies, right? We don't actually want to believe that anything that is in that rabbit hole is actually true and real. It happens now as much as it has through history. And for a priestess specifically, there tends to be a thread or mm, a, an, a history of experiencing things. And I'll say, we'll use the alcohol, for instance, in regards to your story and what you know about this as well, is that alcohol has been used throughout history to connect the, right? So they call spirit spirit for a reason. It was used as a way to open the vessel and to connect the spirit, and only the most uh, devoted and integral could stay anchored and harnessed in their physical body whilst intoxicating themselves. So the idea was leave your body and go connect with spirit. It was actually to stay anchored, holding, and in the most connection to God, whilst you basically poison your vessel and go through this experience where there's different energies. Now, the thing that's been so distorted about this, and I wouldn't use it as an initiation process now in today's modern society, but you could definitely sit there and go, okay, I'm going to challenge myself and see how much I can stay in integrity with spirit and
Yeah.
alchemize out.
Yeah.
And that is a way that you can learn self mastery. Whether or not it's the most yummy way, totally up to you. But in that, what's happened is, because when we leave our body with alcohol, which is what so many people do, it's why we use it as a coping mechanism, freedom and disconnection, is that we then invite that body that no longer has our spirit for other spirits to enter. And that's
Yep.
the infiltration point. So, what have you come to learn and know about this?
Yeah, like that is so interesting, exactly what you just said. And I've experienced that. I've experienced like full possession. So I was using it to escape. I didn't want to have this human experience. It was uncomfortable. So I would just use it to dissociate. And then when I wasn't in body, I would have invite and allow that in. And I have had full possessions before. Um, and then when I was not choosing it anymore, but it was still so programmed in my default programming, using it as a self mastery tool. But it was an excuse. That was an excuse to keep drinking, which just wasn't serving at all. And I came to a point where it's just not worth it. It lowers my vibration so much that I'm not choosing this in my reality anymore. There is just too much infiltration that's come with it. But I can journey back into those past lives, into those memories where it has been used in the past, for ascension and dissension, and really see that now through the eyes of God. And it is really beautiful to do that. And I thank you for those memories being unlocked.
So, if we go into you went back in our first session, you went back to a time that you were 2 and you found like a draining tube, right? And it's been siphoning on you since you were 2 years old. This happens a lot with infiltration, and we talk about it when there are people that are talking about it and they're talking about psychic attack. They're always talking about protection, right? It's always like protect, do this, do that, but we're not actually often going, well, you invited it in some way. You've actually consented to it. So what is the root belief or the root story narrative aspect of self that allowed this to come in? And I know that you've uh, journeyed quite a bit with this underworld energy. And I've often been the other one on the support end that hasn't had it up until recently. I've had my own infiltration journey and initiation to see what it was that was inviting it in for me as well. And I would love to know what your theme has been. Like, what has been the overall lesson? Like, why would you create that for yourself?
Sure. What always comes through is test and initiation. So putting myself through this in order to experience it, and then I can teach and pass on and support others to go through it. So the amount of psychic attack that I've been through and learning how to move through that um, is just so much. And but I'm thankful for that. There is so much gratitude there that I have been able to journey through that. And now I've been attracting clients that mirror. So clients are coming to me saying, please assist me with this entity, assist me with this curse. These beings that are not of the light. So now I know how to move through it because I've done it myself. So I chose to have those experiences. And also that I'm carrying and resonating with a lot of the angelic realm. So my polarity is I'm journeying the light, the angelic realm, and we're on this earth to experience the polarity. So of course my polarity is journeying the underworld. So it's just having that experience of both.
Yeah, I also hold a very angelic, unified consciousness. And although I have journeyed the polarity, I didn't do it quite the same way. And I love this about priestesses and how we choose to initiate ourselves. And we don't realize that that's what we're doing in our human experience. That's literally what we're doing from an unconscious level is we're initiating ourselves to come back into the remembrance of our connection to God. So everything that we're choosing is actually very tactful when we actually remember where and why. And the reason for that is, for anyone who's not aware of what a priestess is, at the deep root of the coding of a priestess is the desire to full devotion to God. And so that's where priests come from. Priests in the religious narrative are here to speak the word of God and to be teachers of God and the word. And there's no difference to that of a priestess. A priestess is the female version of a priest. And the purest of it is to live, breathe, walk, talk, be in commitment to God, source creator, in that we do. And so when you have this coding in your physical body and your being, and you've come through in this incarnation like that, that will be an overarching driver. It's just that sometimes we don't recognize that that's what we're remembering until we start to awaken. And then that knowing as to why there's always been this seeking, this need, this connection piece is able to be seen. And the challenge with priestess initiations is that we are doing it from the unconscious lens. And there are some very typical initiations for a priestess around, especially around infiltration and understanding our polarity. So what I've seen is that I didn't allow for the infiltration in me. And I was so divinely protected because of the oracle I am and what I've chosen to be. I had a lot of ethereal thought as to why I still needed and wanted to learn the realms of the underworld, the demons and the Satan consciousness. And so for me, what I chose was polarities of individual humans. So I found that I would traverse be in a lot of experiences with relationships or partners that were from the underworld, and they were holding reptilian consciousness, draconian consciousness, some of the biggest high players that have been on have worked through these humans and vessels, and I was training and learning how to be in purity and remember who I was through that. Have you found during your journey that a lot of your relationships and friendships have held your polarity up until a specific point of your journey?
I would say not really, which is really interesting. Like I've gone back and done a lot of work on this, and I don't feel I've chosen to learn this through the mirror in the relationships. There has been a couple, but it's normally the experience of the attack of journeying through it myself rather than seeing that mirror through the relationships, which is really interesting.
Hmm. To, my journey is very different in lens in that way, so
Mm,
that the sisters and brothers that are watching this might be able to gain a lot of insight in that, because for me, I've always felt so protected. I felt, I grew up with a mother that taught me how to do light lines for protection to keep me safe from the alien abductions and different things, and psychic attacks. And I was like, I would do it occasionally, but I just never felt like I needed to.
mm,
And I've, even through my journey of when I started holding spaces, what I came to was I don't need it, but I often need to do it for whoever's in my space. And that's what I learned. I was like, I don't tend to need to protect myself because I'm so divinely protected, but I do need to be aware of protection and understand all of it. So there has been some really challenging initiations to actually open my eyes to this, is that not everyone has that same belief construct or programming in their psyche. And so, yeah, I saw a lot of this internal infiltration through my polarities, where they were being possessed by demons, where there were things working through them to attack them themselves, right? And to cause detours in their life experience and to drain their energy, um, basically cause complete upheaval. What are some of the ways internally, like for someone who doesn't know what psychic attack feels like or what it experienced like, how can you explain what you've experienced internally in the form of knowing that you are you and then all of a sudden you're something else?
yeah, absolutely. So just going back, I've placed myself in locations of density throughout my life. So growing up in Melbourne and the career, the work path that I choose, high complex needs, young people, homelessness, the justice system, the alcohol and drug space, moving through those locations. And I've had to protect myself wherever I go locationally. I still need to, I feel like I'm clearing a space every time I walk into it. Um, and the psychic attack that I have experienced, even when I walk into so a big shopping center, it's like straight away. As much as protection I put around myself, I still feel sometimes it's too much. So really highly sensitive empath, feeling it all in my body. So how I feel it is if I'm walking into a space, it's physical pain. It comes in my body and I feel it in my shoulders and it's tight and I have to get out of there. That was my default program of just run, get out. But now moving through that, I have the tools, I work with a lot of dragon energy to assist with the clearing when I walk into spaces, so I don't have to then hold it within my body because I feel it a lot internally. So that is really helping me now. But I would experience so much at nighttime. So as a child, the night terrors, the nightmares, even as an adult, astral projecting a lot, and a lot of psychic attack in dream time, in the early mornings, entities, bats, the darkness, my whole energy being siphoned out of me. You wake up in the morning and you have absolutely no energy. It felt like being astrally raped. And I allowed that. Looking back, I allowed all these things in. Um, and just the draining, it's the draining of the life force energy, but it's been the initiation to come into my center. So knowing when you go on autopilot, so when we're on autopilot, when we're disconnected, we're dissociated, I'm not divinely protected in that space. So it's coming into center when I am present, when I am connected, when I am in my heart space coherence, I am divinely protected. So that is the initiation of presence. And my whole life, that if there is one main lesson, it is presence. And the alcohol was the disconnection. Of course, that was my main learning point, because that was the separation. That's what dissociated me. That's what disconnected me. So now, presence, and I am divinely protected. It's so funny to look back on it all.
Yeah, I know for a lot of beings that I've worked mentor as an initiate, and from what I've seen as we'll just glump it together as the bringers of change and these highly evolved consciousness that come in human form to have a human experience and to bring whatever medicine and magic they come to bring. But what happens is there is a point often like very early in life, usually between 1 and 5, where there's a psychic attack or there's some kind of scary experience that happens. And that child and that consciousness at that time, and this is where you ended up with that feeding tube, was that something happened and there's an exchange that's made for protection. There's an exchange that's made for some kind of safety, and it's done through trickery. And then we end up in this loop of constant feeding and mutation that takes place. And it's a little scary because I mean we can look at it from the lens of neutrality now because we've seen it and we've gone through our different layers that and gone, oh wow, well I created that for this reason. For those that are not on that side, it's pretty terrifying. It is terrifying to wake up in the morning and be absolutely exhausted again, not know how to think, the heaviness, the weightedness, not um, being overly emotional is one of the things. So playing with the emotional aspects of the being, and the uh, mm, the intent to forget and to not be able to be clear in your own abilities and gifts. Because when you have this infiltration, it's basically being fed right down to the underworld, either in the second or the first dimension in some form, sometimes into galactic areas, sometimes into headquarters and different realms of the unseen in some form. And the reason that I feel it's important to share this is because there are so many beings, there's so many bringers of change and priestess that are being drained, and they're being drained all of the time. And so they think they have chronic fatigue. They think that they don't have a brain that is cognitively smart enough or able to function properly. They might have physical pain that has riddled them for years, and not that this is actually not your natural state of being, that you've got all of these different points of connection, devices, and different aspects of technologies that have connected you and keeping you in pain so that you just can't remember your life, so you can't be your truth. Um, it's it's also really powerful because what I how I would explain it is that when you see that these beings don't have power unless they're feeding off you, they're powerless. So it's like there's always this amazing opportunity to feel so empowered to remember God. It feels like there's such a powerful remembrance that happens. And I know for me, when I went through the early repressed memories of my early priestess initiations, which were very severely in the root chakra. My root chakra was very fragmented through not just this, and this is how our experience might be different. Is I've always had the infiltration or the counterattack of the dark through an external. So that even happened through the physical sexual abuse from different beings. So it was not the internal experience
Mm.
so much, but it was the physical brunt of the external of others that were in that energy, and how that kept me in a place of disassociation and fear because I didn't want to be in my body during
Yeah. Mm.
these experiences. So it creates same uh, the same overall experience, which is get out, fuck this, I'm out of here. And learning to come back into the body, learning to be with the body, learning to teach the body, the nervous system, and all of um, the self, you are safe now. And
Yeah.
that when you're here in your body, you are safe. And I guess the tricky part of this is that none of those experiences could have actually happened. And this is where divine protection comes in if we hadn't have fragmented in the first place. So fragmentation is where the protection gets lost. So we are, because I know I've heard lots of people say, well, if God exists, and how would this happen? And
Mhm.
it's like, well, God doesn't allow that to happen, but the getting of God allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, so uh, it's confronting for the human because I know that a big part of healing and coming out of trauma and coming into presence has mean has meant for me and for the people that I work with to go, okay, we need to look at the multidimensional and look at why it was created, what your monad was doing, what your soul's purpose is, why you would initiate yourself over this, and what the intention was, and see the zoomed out, but then also see the human and the zoomed in of, yeah, you were terrified and you were afraid and you didn't feel loved, and to feel all the emotion. How has that journey been for you? Because I know for a lot of people, they want to focus on one pole or the other. How have you integrated the zoomed out, zoomed in?
It's been a long journey, and look, I'm still in it. I'm still working on integrating, reclaiming, embodying, um, and it was going through that Barakah process, which you introduced me to, which was really the start of it. When I started this journey, learning Reiki, energy healing, you learn to just go through your chakras and just clear and purify. And I would start at my crown and go down, or I'd start at my root and go up, but it was really just surface level. It wasn't until I connected with you through this process that I realized my root chakra was completely closed. I had cords from my root chakra to my sacral to the underworld, which of course my root chakra is going to remain closed. So it was unplugging those cords, moving through the crown, the solar plexus, the heart, the sacral, the root, to safely open my root, and then go through the purging again, which I thought I'd done all that, but it just the layers of it. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. The persecution wounds, the root chakra wounding it does go so deep, but it's just allowing the body to be okay through that process. So, calming the body, calming the nervous system, speaking to the cells and the atoms and the molecules, and just calming my nervous system while we go through this process. And going through it in a sisterhood has helped so much. And of course, knowing how to stand in my power when that attack does happen. I haven't had, just recently I've had some, but there was a big period there when I haven't had much psychic attack, because I was strong in my power. Because when, as you were saying, remembering how powerful you are, your attackers are of that low 1D, 2D consciousness. They're siphoning to get your light. If you remember in that moment how powerful you are, they'll just dissolve. You can destroy them and they'll just fuck off. So remembering that. So there is really nothing to fear. So I've been embracing it, and it's actually really exciting. I get quite excited in this topic, journeying through the underworld now. But there has been that point. I think it was with you in a session when I was journeying the angelic realms, and then I went down to the underworld, and I wanted to shine my light so bright. I wanted to fix. I wanted to heal. I didn't want what was happening to happen. That's my healer. I want to fix it. And it was that how can there be a God when there is so much destruction and so much terror and horror and what is happening under the tunnels, and I was there. How can there be so much? And then I got to a point when I went down to that 1D, 2D consciousness, and it was like, you know what? It's okay. Like from that level, there is no shame. There is even joy and pleasure if you're operating from a 1D consciousness. So who am I to judge that? It was my perception of that it was bad. So that fully changed my whole perception of the underworld, coming into that 0 point neutrality of just seeing it for what it is. Which was a huge initiation to go through, which you assisted me with. So much gratitude for that test. Yeah.
Yeah, that I remember that moment in time because when that your eyes open and they're like, oh my God, they don't actually see anything at that level, don't see any wrongness in this at all. It's
Mm.
life. It's just one-dimensional living. And
Yeah.
you're like, whoa. It's like don't know how to see the world again now. And this is why and this is one of the traps of, we'll say, a priestess specifically, and any other bringers of change that have come from, is you come with the intention to bring higher consciousness. So your interpretation of what just living is very different to that lens. And so you're like, yeah, we're here to connect more and love more and bring more joy or love-based thinking into the human experience. And then so when you see things that are not that, you go, well, or so I'm going to try and fix that and change that. And so the one of the core wounds that I find of a woman with the healing capacity, or a conduit or an oracle, a priestess with this energy, is that I will be the purifier. I will be the purifier of that, because that's not what I live. And so there's this wound created over and over and over and over again, and this loop of, to purify that, I have to put myself in that, and I will take it all on, and I will make sure all of the darkness is gone. But the thing that that is so tweaky is that that doesn't actually want to be purified.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you're going in there, healing, purifying,
Yeah.
fixing, transforming. I'll show you the light. And they're like, I don't actually give a fuck about the light. Like, it's not actually something that they're choosing,
Yeah.
which is the challenge, because
Mm.
it's where so many of us actually lead ourselves off our path, is that on our path of, all right, well, I'm going to choose those that are choosing purification, or greater love-based thinking, or transformation, growth, whatever that is, from whatever lens of your intent. We tend to actually attract our polarity, because we're confused in the mental construct that that's what I'm here for, so I must do it there, rather than that's what I'm here for. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to live from it and be it. Um, with some of these concepts around that confusing polarization, paradoxical mind, getting around it, how do you find that you've made peace with some of these concepts? Like, what is your process to making peace to the paradox of this universal
Mm.
creation as the human experience?
Well, after I journeyed the polarity, it's really coming into acceptance. It's just full acceptance. I don't need to change it. I don't need to fix it. It's just coming into it. It is what it is. We are here to experience that polarity, the light and the dark. I do not choose the dark. There is experience of the dark. Full acceptance, and that brings me peace. And yeah, I get a lot of people come, and they're still in that fear. Um, and yeah, it's just being witnessing that, acknowledging that, um, and just supporting the journey until they can find and come into their own peace and solace.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, there was so much resistance in the past. Yeah.
And that is another part of this path of the priestess, is the resistance to their own
Yeah.
light. And so
Mm.
the distraction, the addiction, the
Yeah.
numbing, the seeking of the seven deadly sins is what
Yeah.
I do find is a great expression, is
Yeah.
that when you're here so much for the light, you will seek the dark in
Mm,
such strong ways until you're almost slungshot back into yourself
yeah.
from whatever pain point. And a big part of my journey has been you don't have to do what I did. You don't have to
Mm,
get to the point of dying to choose God. Like
yeah.
it's innately within you. So instead of that, what if you just chose? What
Yeah.
if you just chose the light? What if you just chose healing? What if you just chose
Mm,
remembrance? And it took a lot of my own mutations of thought and manipulation and past life memory and the different layers of hearing
mm,
from my channel. The very first time that I channeled, the message was in presence to do. You just know and be everything. And to actually come to that full understanding of, oh, wow, I get it, has
mm,
taken so much detangling of consciousness and mutations of thought and expression. But what what I feel is has been helpful with it actually, and I know that most people wouldn't probably see it in this way, but what I found helpful for me was coming into why I was emotionally unstable. So if I had have got a diagnosis, I would have been diagnosed with bipolar. I definitely would swing and have extreme emotional meltdowns. And anyone who knows me when I'm not stable within my source connection will say that I'm bouncy and left and right hemispheres of the brain. And I've also got a very addictive personality, or
mm,
what I know that now is that I was very aware, very overactive mind, and a conduit that would hear and see, sense, feel everything. So if I wasn't stable within my center, I would just attach to everything and it would become a whirlwind of emotion. And with that, there is a point to my madness right now, and I just lost the thread in the ADHD conversation, is that it doesn't actually, for individuals like you and I, and for many that will resonate on some degree or another, but very highly in tune. This is a very much priestess and a male conduit pattern, is when you're very highly sensitive to thought, telepathy, feeling, and all senses, that you get distracted, lost, and overwhelmed very
mm,
easily. And even now, when I go into that energy, as you saw,
mm.
I was in that energy and I was like, oh, hang on, I need to come back here.
Yeah, come
What
back to
was that I was
center.
actually talking about? Because you are not running from those programs anymore. You're present, you're able to communicate. Um, but there is a hmm, misconception that hmm, I guess that's wounding, and that's there's a wrongness in it. But I know that there is so much rightness in that way of being. There's so much beauty and so much gifts, as every single one of my abilities has been the empath or the high yoga empath, and the extremely sensitive and overly emotional or hyper aware, the being that was, say, paranoid. So, paranoia for me, and I'm sure that, and I would love to hear the different things that you found in this so that we can bring some awareness, is paranoia for me was I was aware of something, but my brain was unable to find the awareness. And there was too much distortion with either within myself or within the field that I couldn't pinpoint it. So the paranoia would be, I'm aware there's something wrong here. And my mind would start looping and I'd end up in a paranoia loop because I was looking for the awareness. Things like people would say I was an overthinker and I got frustrated. I was more aware of myself. When I got to that point where I actually knew how I functioned, I'd be like, oh, no, I'm just hyper aware. And I know there's something that my body and my brain is trying to find the missing piece of.
Yeah.
So I'm shuffling through all of the information to get to the thing. Now, with the DAC process and that beautiful gift that's been developed through all of these layers of me being
Yeah.
confused in mental illness or mental health or wounding and being
Mm,
PTSD and all those things that are just symptoms of hyper in tune, aware, sensitive souls that have happened through fragmentation, I was able to, I was gifted this framework of the DAC process, which is dissension, ascension, completion, which allows for us to descend into those core pieces. Now, the challenge is, as we were speaking about earlier, is that most of us are doing this through the contrast of our experience. So we're in it. Now, DAC is helpful when you're in it, but it's way easier for all of us to see something in our peripherals and go, oh, this is an awareness piece I need to look at, and sit with it before we're in it, before we're running from it, because we hear and see the awareness well before it manifests into the fuckery. And when we understand this and learn this, then we can stay more present in our experience. Have you found that in your, devotional connection and the learning to stabilize yourself and be connected, that if you consciously choose to unpack something and look at it, that how much of a difference do you notice in your life to when you let life throw it at you to looking at and doing the work?
So much, so much. And as you've taught me, choosing now to learn my lessons through source, not through the dissension point. So seeing that higher perspective, and not choosing to journey in it, and using that DAC process to see the higher perspective of the dissension, the ascension, the completion around the lesson. So it always comes back to the lesson, the reason it's happening. And if I can pinpoint that reason before I even go through it, you don't have to journey in the muck. It's been life changing, life changing.
And that's they call collapsing karma. So we don't have to live out our karma
Yeah.
to learn from it if we
Yeah.
see it before we live it out.
Yeah.
With your karmic footprint and
I've
a
got a
little bit
lot.
of a bit of your past life history and bringing it into the levels of, say, curses, black magic, infiltration. What is some of the hardest remembrance that have maybe you've wanted to either hide from telling people or have found really hard for yourself to cognitively solidify that? What are some of those things that you've traversed and journeyed either through the purity of Isis or on your own that you've had to really sit with for some time to digest?
Yeah, sure. So just recently, it's been the destruction of Lyra. That has been quite difficult. So from that separation point, that was one of my core separation points. So when I was looking back along my timeline, instead of going back to every single timeline, I asked to go back to the root, to the core. So that took me back to Lyra, the destruction of Lyra, of witnessing the destruction of a planet, of my soul family, of beings in front of my eyes. So doing work on that core, from that moment, I bounded myself. This was how my third eye was so closed, and I'm still slowly opening it because I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see the destruction, the chaos. So going back to the root cause and doing work on that has allowed all the other wounds, instead of journeying through them, it's taken the energy out of those other wounds, and I haven't actually had to witness all that destruction because I've gone back to the root. Yeah.
Beautiful. And this is why I love sharing these conversations and some insight because, I didn't have this framework. There was no one that I could, I mean, one, the message was from source from as early as I could receive clear message was no, you don't learn from anyone else. You connect to source and you do it here. This is where you learn. This is where you're gonna create your modality and your healing and no one outside of you is going to help you. And so I was guided not to read books and But now I know on the other side of it, there was no one that could have helped me anyway. At the time,
Yeah.
with what I needed to see for
Mm.
myself, and I know this, and I know that it's hard to say this with however many billion people are on the planet, but I've been shown over and over and over there was no one that could have led me to that point of consciousness because I actually had to lead the way in that. And that was super, super sucky at the same time as very empowering because
Yeah.
what it gave me was, and I know there's other beings that are doing this from their own creating these pathways, so it's easier for others to do that. And it's still hard. It's not easy. It's like so my experience was I didn't know to go to the core. Like I knew that I had to see stuff, but I didn't have that framework of all right, core creation point that started the whole unraveling to begin with. So I was in Egypt here, I was back in Lemuria over here, and sometimes I was in Lyra. I was in my current life, I was in the life before this life, and I was split and fragmented across the universe and the galaxy and parallel timelines, trying to pull myself back together in pieces and just going, well, this is active now, and I'm going to bring this bit back, and I'm going to bring this bit back, and literally collecting my soul from where it had been left behind. And what I found and see through my experience and from holding space is that when we go back into those memories, I didn't do it so consciously, right? So it was very much activated in my experience. I would be hyperventilating, panicking, crying, and in complete trauma responses at some of these points of time where I had fragmented so far that um, yeah, things like cloaking myself, hiding myself. Mine was also, I didn't want to see. I had a very big, 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 big third eye block of not wanting to see any of the pieces. But with 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 the doing the work at this level, and I want to bring awareness to this because I see a lot of people say, I've been doing past life work for years. I've been doing healing and Reiki for years, and I've been doing this and this and this. And I'm like, well, you're actually not getting to the core because I can feel, sense, see, perceive that part of your whatever Lyran remembrance you've had, you've not even touched the core surface of what created that. And so what I see is a lot of people are dancing around the top, around the surface, and they don't know how to get to the core of what created it, which anything that was built on top of that memory can collapse at the same time. And that's what's so powerful about quantum healing is you go straight back to that core creation point and all of these things that you didn't even realize were built on top of it just dissolve. With your core creation point memories, I'd love you to share what you feel in your body. What is your experience when you do it, maybe consciously and unconsciously? Like how does how do you physically experience that?
So when you're in it, it is a full body response. Like it is just an emotional, like energetic response. The tingles, the feeling, you're in it. And if I let myself sit in it and feel it, it is full emotional. And it's witnessing, feeling, expressing myself in that, sitting in it, feeling it to heal it. It is so powerful. Like when we remember those pieces, our whole body remembers it, and it's undeniable. So powerful, which yeah, just amazing.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the memories of
Mm,
the body. So mm, to loop and return back around to infiltration
mm,
and say, and being having the history I've had on the earth, and my ability to tune to truth. So that's something I really master to that truth. So anyone could tell me anything, and I may not have any cognitive awareness, but I can say truth lie, and kind of like a lie detector. It's really easy for me to spend a lot of time training that. And what I see is a lot of instability based on not being in their body, and through different overwhelm and over activity, anxiety, instability in the physical body. And what happens is a memory might be implanted or a experience might be created in that being's experience, and then all of a sudden they think that they are, say, Osiris from ancient Egypt, or that they did this terrible, horrible thing, or whatever it is, and that's because um, of their inability to stay in the feeling and to feel the resonance of what is theirs and not. Because what happens is the anyone can experience consciousness. Right? We can travel anywhere. We can go, and I could, in this moment, I could go, okay, Kat, I'm going to go check out one of your lives. I'm going to jump into your consciousness. And we're going to go back there, and I'm going to, which is what someone who surrogates and does energy healing in surrogate does. Empaths often use that technique without even realizing they're doing it. And that's how I've been actually an amazing space holder, is I'll open the field and I let go of me for a moment and I become one with whoever the individual is. So I do experience it. Now, the difference is I know cells, and my feeling is not actually experiencing anything that they're going through. I might feel emotion, I might cry for them even, I might feel the pain of it, and but I know that that's not my memory. And so what I see for people is they're getting really confused of who they are and knowing themselves, which is history actually. Look, if you weren't here in the last previous cycles of life, then I actually think you've got an advantage because you don't want to be any of those people. I can tell you that right now. They've journeyed the depths. And there's this like attachment to wanting to be someone historical, wanting to remember that there's someone important, and there's this part of the mind because of the unworthiness, the unlovability that has not been met physical body from the three-dimensional human child aspect, that there's a lot of confusion in remembering who oneself is, and then also getting manipulated to believe that someone is something that they are not because they've seen, and they may have seen through their own eyes this experience as if it was them. So how would you, through your own journey, give some tips on how to know and be sure that you're someone who's experienced a lot of infiltration? What is your consciousness and what is someone else's? Like, how can you assist someone to make sense of that?
Mm. So for me personally, before I go into channel, before I work with clients, there are just a few statements that I always say. Asking to only channel light, asking that no beings will work through me, making sure that I am safe, secure, and protected in my channel, and doing a lot of clearing. So just anyone who's on this journey and is interested in protecting themselves, clearing themselves from that infiltration, just making sure that you are protected in your field. So coming into channel and feeling what it feels like to be you, to feel what it feels like to be in your identity, in your ego, moving up through the higher states of consciousness, embodying your higher self in this moment, and really getting stable in your channel first. So you've assisted me, Guy, to do so much work in my channel. If there was one thing I have learned through journeying through the Temple of Isis initiation, is being really strong in my channel now, connecting with the above and the below. So making sure I'm anchored in, and really sitting and witnessing what is me. And then doing all the clearing. So actually going through all the clearing. And this has taken me years. So I've been sitting, I've been clearing. Um, uh, emotions, limiting beliefs, doing clearing, cutting cords with all individuals, all of my relationships in my life, and it gets deeper and deeper. So clearing the feeding tubes, clearing the implants, clearing the infiltration, clearing the density. Then just recently, clearing the subliminal programming, clearing the tech, clearing the AI. It just goes deeper and deeper. The amount of tech which I am now aware of that has been in my field, and infiltrating me on all the different levels of my being. So the main thing would be dropping into your being, into channel. So anchoring into the above and the below, and just witnessing yourself and what you feel like when you're in body. And then throughout the day, just being really present. So it's just being really mindful, being really present in the moment of when something comes in. And if it does, this is not mine, asking, is this mine? It's been a long journey, and I'm still learning. There is so much more that we don't know what we don't know, and it just keeps getting more and more. So I hope I answered that question.
And the journey um, is art of devotion. So in
Yes.
moment to moment, every day,
Yes.
every expression, and as you might have seen, I'm less rocky these days, as in not rocky, but well, both. But in regards to Kat, it's rocking, and I spent years sitting in this rocking, and that would help me to be in my channel. So I feel like for anyone who's resonating to the priestess archetype,
I'm always
um,
rocking.
and anything that we're sharing, yeah, you might feel. And I know I've seen Kat do this a lot as she brings energy up and moves, and I've done so much of that
Yeah.
myself. Is like staying in the energy,
Mm.
bringing myself back, returning home, clearing what's in the way. Why did I pull myself out of my channel? Why did I disassociate? It is not for everyone. This path is not for everyone. And so not every woman is a priestess. Every woman that's here for devotion, and that would resonate to the word devotion, everyone that's here for every woman that's here for the aspects of being a speaker or of the word, or a speaker of truth will have some level of connection to the priestess energy, because it is an entire life choice. It's a life choice. It's not something that you can do when you get up and you do 2 hours of practice in the morning and then go be a human being, because that's not what we have chosen at a deep level. So if you're challenged at the moment with some of these things, and you're like, whoa, I can see I have a lot of these different things, and it sparked a lot of remembrance, I can feel my body vibrating, then really looking at how you can shift your life into a devotional practice, because it won't go away. We can try, and we can try and numb it. You can try and shut it off, and you can disassociate, and you can even bypass and move through that. But at some point, um, this is your soul's truth. This is your spirit's. It will constantly, the calling just get louder and louder and louder. So what is it that you need to start to activate your devotional journey, your remembrance journey, so that you're not doing it through the contrast? Because the contrast is actually when you don't want to do life, but when you choose to embrace life in devotion and the actually, I'm going to follow my soul's path. It might be really hard because this universe and this environment doesn't really support women like us. And we are leading a new way. Yet, when you open to the support of spirit, you'll find that you are supported even in this experience. And so, um, I would just love to invite anyone that is receiving this to really feel through what is your next initiation. And do you want to do it consciously, or do you want to place of the contrast? Because you will do it in one way or another. because it's deeply the aspect of what you came here to be. So in that, we do have a cat is one of my amazing court priestesses for the Temple of Light, and she is going to be using her quantum healing abilities and the gift that she is as a conduit, as an energy worker with light language, and all of the different realms um, of magic that she's cultivated either through the purity of Isis or before, and all of that coming together even more in purification. Um, so we have the Temple of Light, which is a full day initiation into remembrance. Now, it's not it's a taste. And that's what it is. It's a taste. It's a little taste tester of life in devotional practice and remembering who you are and seeing these points of um, full recognition of aspects of who you are that maybe you didn't even realize were you. So, um, I'm really honored to have Kat as a part of the support of this day and that it is globally streamed. So any woman that's resonating on any level can come. It is recorded. It is preferred that if you are going to attend, that you attend live. But there will be a recording of it that is available. It just means you're not going to get the full support that would come through if you were attending live. And I would definitely recommend breaking it up in sections because it is an 8 hour full jam of magic. In regards to how you're supporting me, I would love for you to share a little bit around what you've come to know and embody as your own innate priestess. Who are you? If you could explain what you are as a priestess, what your medicine is, how you support, what is that?
Wow. So, this is something that I have just really started to reclaim and embody. I am priestess, I am conduit, I am energy healer, I am a quantum healer. I hold coding for the root chakra, which is really interesting because my weaknesses were the root chakra and also the throat. But after I was able to start clearing and purifying that, they are now my greatest strength. So the magic and the medicine that I now hold is through the coding in the root chakra. So assisting people to clear the density, and also the magic through the throat that comes out through my light language. So I'm a light language channel. Holding coding from the angelic realm, the Palladians are Lyran, um, yeah, and Egyptian.
Mhm. Who's receiving this would like to work with you one on one, what is it, Summer, or be interested in following you or receiving your medicine? What is it that you offer as a support?
Sure. So I do one-on-one healing, so soul healing journeys, online or on Zoom. You can find me through Sacred Healing Space on Facebook or on YouTube. I have a beautiful soul remembrance journey coming up, which is online with the beautiful sister Tamsin Young, which is coming up in October. If you would like to unlock the remembrance of your soul. Um, and yeah, YouTube is my main platform to find me on.
We'll make sure that we have the links in the description box below. And so make sure you head over to Sacred Healing Space and find Kat and follow her on socials. And if you want to reach out, please do so if you're in resonance. And if you're feeling resonant to jump into a co-created space, we also have the Purity of Isis that is doing a 1010 portal transmission. So that is facilitated by all of us group in a group situation where we have the other sisters that are not on this podcast that have been going through the initiation process and bringing their unique medicine through their quantum healing, their channel, their priestess, and sharing it in a way to assist us in the next step of the Earth's evolution and humanity's, which is around the activation of the heart and the high heart, focusing on this love-based consciousness, really allowing it to support in to ourselves, to solidify that in ourselves so that it can be offered to humanity, as well as DNA upgrades, chakra alignment, and different frequency shifts. So that will be a beautiful journey. You can find that in my link tree, and you can also find the Temple of Light if you're feeling called to activate your priestess, learn a little more, and see if maybe traversing and journeying the 333 days of the purity of Isis is for you, because it is definitely a devotional practice. Thank you so much, Kat, for your time, energy, and sharing your journey with the Barakah process. And it's been a deep honor to hear your story.
Thank you so much for holding space.
All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy and make sure you like, subscribe. Until next time.